We are going to examine the morphology of third declension nouns. Those are nouns that end in a consonant instead of a vowel. They are quite a lot more complex than the first and second declensions. But if you master the diagnostics involved, you'll be able to recognize the vast majority of third declension nouns and parse them without necessarily having to memorize too many paradigms. Mounce has a brilliantly simple way of learning to recognize and form Greek nouns. His master case ending chart, in combination with his 8 noun rules, considerably reduces the complexities. You must memorize the 8 rules, the master chart, the article, and that is pretty much all that you're asked to memorize. From there on, we'll work on understanding what's happened in particular cases, and where there are nouns that are a little bit hard to understand, we'll analyze and break them open, and in that way you'll learn to recognize the overwhelming majority and form the various cases of them. This is the master case ending chart. You absolutely have to commit this to memory. So far, we've studied the first and second declension forms. We are now dealing with the third declension forms. We cannot overemphasize the importance of having this chart thoroughly memorized. The work that you spend memorizing this now is going to save you hundreds of hours later when it comes to trying to figure out particular forms. And here are the master case endings for the third declension. You've already memorized the first and second declension case endings. These are the third declension ones. Once you've added these to your memory list, you will have learned all of the master case endings, and you should be able to pass all Greek nouns, in combination, of course, with the 8 rules. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you commit these thoroughly to memory. It'll save you many hours of scratching your head and trying to figure out what you're looking at later. We need to clarify a few small points about vocabulary, grammatical vocabulary in particular. In first and second declension nouns, we were dealing with nouns that had stems ending in a vowel, either an O-class vowel for the second declension or an A-class vowel for the first declension. Third declension nouns have stems that end in a consonant. So our vocabulary changes a little bit. The first critical thing relates to the noun stem. The noun stem for a third declension noun is the genitive singular form with the case ending removed. Notice it is the genitive singular, not the nominative singular. When we did first and second declension nouns, we treated the noun stem as the nominative singular with the case ending removed. That does not work for third declension nouns. The noun stem is the genitive singular form with the case ending removed. This is absolutely critical, and for this reason, when you memorize a vocabulary item for a third declension noun, you must memorize not only the nominative, but also the genitive form. The stem consonant is the final consonant with which the noun stem ends. Remember, third declension nouns have stems that end in a consonant. And the case ending is simply the case ending that is added to the noun stem. Particularly in the nominative, when the case ending is added, there are changes that take place. And this is the reason that the nominative form does not correspond so closely to the noun stem. Summary then, the noun stem is the genitive singular form with the case ending removed. The stem consonant is the final consonant with which the noun stem ends, and the case ending is the case ending that is added to the noun stem. We can illustrate this idea by looking at the noun sarx, sarkos, hei. So in the dictionary we are going to find sarx, sarkos, hei, meaning flesh. The nominative singular is sarx. The genitive singular is given next. It is sarkos. And the hei tells us that it is feminine. Have a look at the genitive singular, sarkos. If we remove the case ending is os, we are left with the noun stem. So the noun stem is sark, sark, the genitive singular with the case ending removed. The stem consonant would be kappa, the kappa in sark. So when we remove the genitive singular case ending, we are left with the noun stem. The stem for a third declension noun will end in a consonant. In this case, it is the consonant kappa. If you look at the nominative singular sarks, you cannot figure out from that what the noun stem is. You have to look at the genitive singular. Let's talk a little bit about the diagnostics for third declension nouns. We are working with a diagnostic approach towards identifying Greek words. For the third declension nouns, we are going to mark the stem consonant in red and the case ending in blue. You should try to get into the habit of recognizing the case endings as markers of what you are seeing. The other major diagnostic is the presence of the article, if it's present. So whenever the article is present, it will identify the case, gender, and number of the noun. Remember, they will always be in agreement. So always look for the article. It's a key and clear diagnostic. When the article is not present, you must be able to pass the noun by looking at the case ending and seeing how it's been applied to the noun stem. In third declension nouns, unlike first and second declension nouns, the masculine and feminine forms are the same. By looking at a form, you cannot tell whether it is masculine or feminine. The context and or the presence of the article would clarify that. So third declension nouns, masculines and feminines, are formed the same way. While we are looking at the formation of these words, the masculine and feminine forms must be treated together. We begin as usual with the nominative singular. We are going to look at a few examples. The nominative singulars tend to be the most irregular of all of the forms of third declension nouns. The reason they're irregular is that the nominative singular case ending is sigma, and sigma, when it joins to a consonant, often results in some changes. We start with the noun sarks. We saw previously that the noun stem is sark, ending in kappa. The case ending is sigma. Now when you add sigma to a vela, remember the velas are kappa, gamma, and chi. When you add sigma to a vela, the two form xi. So the vela, in this case kappa plus sigma, turn into xi. And that's exactly what we have. Sarks is formed from sark plus sigma. And then kappa and sigma combine to form xi. One more comment. Just like the nominative singular case ending, which is sigma, the dative plural case ending begins with a sigma. The case ending is si. Because it begins with a sigma, whatever changes happen in the nominative singular also happen in the dative plural. We'll see that a little bit later, but commit it to your mind for the time being. Next, let's look at the word tis. Tis, tinos. This is technically not a noun, it is actually an interrogative pronoun, but that doesn't matter. It behaves according to third declension rules, and it's very common. The genitive singular would be tinos, from which, after removing the case ending os, you can infer that the noun stem is tin. Tin. When we add the nominative singular case ending sigma, the nu in tin, the final stem consonant, drops out. In other words, nu will not stand before sigma. So you have tin plus sigma becomes tis because the nu drops out. As our third example, let's take pass. This is from pas, pantos. Pas, pantos. If you take the genitive singular pantos and you remove the case ending os, you get the noun stem, pant, pant. Now something strange happens. When you add sigma, neither nu nor tau will stand after sigma. So when you add the sigma at the end of pant, first the tau drops out, and that leaves you with pans, and then the nu drops out. So in effect, nu tau both drop out when sigma is added. Neither of them can stand before the sigma. So nu tau plus sigma becomes sigma. The genitive singular case ending is os. Nouns points out in one place that it is a combination of the first and second declension endings. You don't need to know that. Think of it as os. And it is simply added to the noun stem. So sark plus os, sarkos. Tin plus os, tinos. Pant plus os, pantos. There are a small number of third declension nouns where the case ending becomes os. In other words, the omicron lengthens to omega. These shouldn't pose any problems as long as you recognize that the omega is simply a lengthened omicron. So the genitive singular case ending is os, and it is added directly to the noun stem. The dative singular case ending is iota, exactly as it is in the first and second declensions. Only, whereas it subscripts because the first and second declensions have stems ending in a vowel, in the third declension the stems end in a consonant, so the iota cannot subscript. But iota is a key diagnostic for a dative singular in all declensions. The case ending iota is simply added to the tense stem, to the noun stem. So sark plus iota, sarki, tin plus iota, tini, pant plus iota, panti. Dative singular case ending, iota. The accusative singular case ending is alpha, and that is different to the other declensions. The accusative singular ending is alpha. Like the genitive and dative, it is simply added to the noun stem. So sark plus alpha, sarka, tin plus alpha, tina, pant plus alpha, panta. A small number of third declension nouns use nu as the case ending. Nu, you will recognize, is the case ending for the accusative singular in the first and second declensions as well. So these are not too hard to recognize. The overwhelming majority, however, use alpha as the accusative singular case ending. The nominative plural case ending is epsilon sigma, s. This is different completely from the other declensions. We simply add it to the noun stem. So sark plus s, sarkes, tin plus s, tines, or pant plus s, pantes. Nominative plural case ending, epsilon sigma s. The genitive plural case ending is own, exactly as it is throughout all declensions. Whenever you see an own, you are looking at a genitive plural if it's a noun form. So sark plus own, sarkon, tin plus own, tinon, or pant plus own, panton. Genitive plural, own throughout. The dative plural is the other problem one, because just like the nominative, it has a case ending that starts with sigma. The dative plural case ending is si, and it has an optional movable nu at the end, so it's si or sin. The sigma in si produces changes when this case ending joins to a stem consonant. For example, if we take sark plus c, the kappa and sigma combine to form xi. So when you add sigma to a velar, it forms xi. So sarksi or sarksin, if we use the movable nu, is the form. Similarly, when we add the sigma to a stem ending in nu, the nu drops out. So nu plus sigma becomes sigma. Therefore, tin plus c becomes tisi. And when we add sigma to pant, first the tau and then the nu drops out. So both the nu and the tau drop out in pant. And so the dative plural becomes pasi. So our two problem ones, the nominative singular and the dative plural, they behave similarly because all of the changes are occasioned by the addition of a case ending that starts with sigma, which has an effect on the stem consonant. Dative plural case ending C with a movable nu. The accusative plural case ending is alpha sigma as, which is different from all the other declensions. In the first declension, the case ending is simply sigma, which is added to a noun stem that ends in alpha. So you see alpha sigma at the end of the word, but in fact the alpha is the stem vowel and the sigma is the case ending. Whereas in the third declension, alpha sigma is in fact the case ending. So when we add this to the noun stem, sark plus as becomes sarkas, tin plus as, tinas, or pant plus as, pantas. In a very small number of nouns, the accusative plural uses epsilon sigma as the case ending. In other words, the accusative plural uses the same case ending as the nominative plural. There are not too many of these, and we'll point out a few examples later. Generally speaking, the accusative plural case ending is alpha sigma. Neuter third declension nouns differ from the masculine and feminine forms in the nominative and accusative cases, but they are the same in the genitive and dative cases. Let us look at how they are formed. Almost all third declension neuter nouns follow the same pattern as the noun onoma. There is no case ending in the nominative and accusative singular. No case ending. The noun stem ends in tau. So the noun stem is onomat. Onomat. But tau will not stand at the end of a word, so it drops out. And that gives us onoma in the nominative and accusative singular. Remember that in the nominative and accusative, all neuter nouns are identical in form. In other words, the nominative and accusative singular of any neuter noun will be the same. So there's no case ending. The noun stem ends in tau, and the tau will not stand at the end of a word, so it drops out. Onoma. In the genitive and dative singulars, the case endings are os and iota, exactly as they were for the masculine and feminine forms, and these are simply added to the noun stem. So onomat plus os, onomatos, or onomat plus iota, onomati. In the nominative and accusative plural, the case ending is alpha. This is consistent for all neuter nouns of all declensions. The nominative and accusative plural of any neuter noun will end in alpha. So the case ending alpha is simply added to the noun stem. Onomat plus alpha, onomata. In the genitive and dative plurals, the case endings are exactly the same as they were in the masculine and feminine forms. In other words, on and c with the movable nu. On is simply added, so onomat plus on, onomaton. In the case of onomasi, what's happening is, as we've seen before, when a case ending with sigma is added to a noun stem that ends in tau, the tau will not stand in front of the sigma, so it drops off. In other words, tau plus c becomes just c. The tau drops off. So onomat plus c is onomasi. We are going to conclude with a look at some special cases. Many of the special cases are occasioned by two letters that used to exist in the Greek alphabet but have fallen out of use by the time of Koine Greek. These are known as consonantal iota and digamma. Here are our two lost consonants, consonantal iota and digamma. The consonantal iota had qualities of a vowel and a consonant. It was pronounced like the Y in yet. We can represent it either by an iota. We'll suggest an iota with an underlining to distinguish it from a straightforward iota, or we can represent it using the simple Latin letter Y. Digamma was a consonant that was pronounced like the W in wet, wet. We can represent it either by the consonant upsilon. We'll underline it to indicate that it's digamma, or by using the actual letter digamma, which looks a little bit like an English F. It's not, but it looks similar. So consonantal iota pronounced like Y in yet, or digamma pronounced like W in wet, both having fallen out but influencing some words that have remained. Two of the words that are affected are pistis, meaning faith, and basileus, meaning king. We're not expecting you to try to memorize this paradigm, but it does provide an opportunity to discuss a few things. Pistis used to end in consonantal iota. In our paradigm, we've represented that consonantal iota using the Latin letter Y. So on the left-hand side, you can see the actual noun stem for pistis with the consonantal iota represented. And then to that is added the various case endings for the third declension, the typical ones that we are familiar with. In our abiding word, what has happened is that the consonantal iota has been represented by either iota or epsilon. So throughout the paradigm where we would have had consonantal iota, we either have iota or epsilon. It alternates between those somewhat. The basic premise of alternation is that when the case ending starts with a consonant, it's iota. When it starts with a vowel, when the case ending starts with a vowel, consonantal iota is being represented by epsilon. But that's not important. You don't need to know that. You just need to recognize that the iota or epsilon stands in place of the lost consonant, and then our case endings are added. The case endings are added fairly typically, and I'll talk you through a couple of the anomalies in a moment. On the right hand side we have basileus. Basileus used to end in digamma, and what's happened in the abiding word basileus is that in some forms the lost digamma is being represented by upsilon. So you'll see that, for example, basileus and basilusi, while in other forms the digamma has simply fallen away and the case endings are added to the noun with no final consonant being represented. Here is a more detailed look at pistis as it is happening. So the lost consonant, consonantal yod, represented on the left hand side by Y, is replaced either by iota or epsilon. We've already said when the case ending starts with a vowel, we're going to see epsilon in place of the consonantal iota, and when it starts with a consonant, we are going to see iota. One exception to that, but generally that holds. You don't really need to know what's causing it to be iota or epsilon, as long as you recognize how the case endings are being suffixed to this. There are a few changes. Notice that when os is added, it lengthens to os. Notice that in the accusative singular, we're using the alternative case ending nu, and for the nominative and accusative plurals, we are using the case ending epsilon sigma. That's the alternate one for the accusative plurals, not the normal alpha sigma. And then epsilon in the case ending is contracting with the stem ending epsilon to form ace. So we can summarize what's happening in 4 main points. In the genitive singular, the omicron in the case ending lengthens to omega. So os goes to os. Recognize that this can happen sometimes and it shouldn't pose any problems. In the accusative singular, we are using the alternative case ending nu. In the accusative plural, we are using the alternative case ending epsilon sigma instead of alpha sigma. And in the nominative and accusative plurals, the epsilon of the case ending is contracting with the epsilon that represents the lost consonantal iota. So the 2 epsilons contract to form a. Now we have a look at what happens to basileus. On the left hand side, you can see the digamma that was originally the final consonant, the stem consonant of the word. What happens on the right hand side is how the current word is formed. Let me explain what is interesting. You will see that in 2 forms, namely the nominative singular and the dative plural, the original digamma is represented by upsilon. So basileus and basilusi represent the lost digamma as upsilon. Why those 2 specifically? Well, they are the only 2 forms that have case endings beginning with a consonant. In all of the other forms, the digamma has fallen away completely, and so the word behaves as if the final stem consonant or the final stem letter is epsilon, and the relevant case endings are then added. So the genitive singular case ending has gone from os to os. Omega has lengthened, but that's not too problematic. And then in the accusative plural, we are using the alternate case ending epsilon sigma, same as for pisteos. And then in the nominative and accusative plural, we see contraction when the case ending epsilon sigma is added to the word ending in epsilon. The 2 epsilons contract. None of that should pose major problems if you recognize what is happening. Well, that brings us to the end of our survey of 3rd declension nouns. The big thing is to learn to recognize the case endings and the pointers or diagnostics as to what you are looking at. Do not try to memorize every paradigm, rather try to understand how particular forms are being built by adding the case endings onto the noun stem.